Hi, I'm Aurora Winter, founder of SamePage Publishing and the author of Turn Words into Wealth. And in this episode, we're going to cover how you can turn your words into wealth, starting surprisingly with the words that you say to yourself as you start each day. So don't miss the whole episode. We go deep and it was a lot of fun. You'll be inspired and informed. Don't miss it.
And hello, fabulous person. Beate Chelette here. I am the host of the Business Growth Architect Show, and I want to welcome you to today's episode where we discuss how to navigate strategy and spirituality to achieve time and financial freedom. Truly successful people have learned how to master both, a clear intention and a strategy to execute that in a spiritual practice that will help them to stay in alignment and on purpose. Please enjoy the show and listen to what our guest today has to say about this very topic. Welcome back, Beate Chelette here, the host of the Business Growth Architect Show. And today we are talking to Aurora Winter, who is from Turn Words into Wealth. And Aurora is kind of like my perfect podcast guest because she's got the story, she's got the challenges, the obstacles to overcome, and she's got lots of good stories to tell. Aurora, I'm so excited to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here.
It's so great to be on the show with you, and we're going to cover a lot of ground that are going to help people change their day around and perhaps change their life around.
Thank you so much. Aurora, for somebody who has never heard about you or does not know what you do, tell us who you are and what problem do you solve for your clients?
I solve the problem of what is your $1 million message anyway, and how can you convey that in a concise, compelling manner, perhaps turn it into a book, and then launch to the next level as a thought leader. So my company, SamePage Publishing, is devoted to helping people who are making a difference make a bigger difference with award-winning books.
I like that. Award-winning books, yeah. And your book has won plenty of awards, as I've seen. And the way you write the outline of the book on Amazon and how you talk about the book is almost written like a sales page. So I have a feeling that when it comes to marketing, you have a lot of tricks up your sleeve to get that message not just formulated, but also get the message out.
The average person writing their first book spends 3.5 years writing it, but then they often drop the ball right at the finish line because they don't understand that, like any product, it needs marketing. I started my first business in my 20s, sold my first business in my 20s also. And so I have a love of communication in all forms, whether entertainment or inspiration or uplifting or marketing, because marketing is simply letting people know the problem that you solve boldly, clearly, so that you can attract the people who are praying for the answer and give that answer to them. And I think a lot of people get their knickers in a knot about marketing, thinking it's sleazy. No, if you and your business are of service, then it is your responsibility to communicate that clearly and be of service.
I like that. I think that's already a really powerful message. I want to make sure that we articulate that so everybody hears this. Is people are generally nervous about marketing and about sales and saying the wrong things to the wrong person and being sleazy or coming across as desperate. But what I'm hearing from you is that you shift that into a different message, that you say if you have a message and it's a good message, people need to hear it. Am I correct?
Exactly right. And not everybody necessarily needs to hear it. So it's all right if some people don't need that message or resonate with that message, or maybe they just don't need it today. But speak it clearly so the person who desperately needs that message today can find it. And I think part of being very clear that marketing is not sleazy, like I start my day by praying for my clients, and I pray to be made of service. I pray to be used, my gifts to be used to make a 10x return on investment for my clients. So I'm not trying to sell something for $100 that's, worth 50. I'm trying to sell something for $100 that's worth 1,000. So in integrity, I'm like, I have a gift to offer, and it's something great with the intention that you'll get a tenfold return on your investment. Not everybody is the right person for that. Not everybody wants to write a book. Not everybody is a leader. Not everybody wants to step up to the next level in thought leadership. But for those people who do, who already have something that's making a difference and want to step up, I am the solution they have been praying for.
I think that's a very simple and very powerful mind shift that when somebody explained it to me like this. It says, our job always is to get people to making a decision. And I visualize that my job is to help people get to an intersection or a dead end. And on the dead end, there's only a left or a right. So there's no other option, right? So they either have to go and say yes or they have to say no. And so at the minute I have figured out that they're actually having to take a turn, my job is completed. If I obviously detach myself from the outcome, that the no isn't against me, the no is just that they took a different turn. And then the yes, of course, is a great outcome because then potentially they know they need a solution and maybe I'm the right provider for that. So I want to dive a little bit into sort of how you got to be that, because you have a very interesting story and not a happy story for a large part of your life. So you had to face an unimaginable tragedy when you were very young. Do you want to talk a little about that? Because I think the second piece I want to go, once you talked about what that is how you dealt with overcoming this unimaginable situation and how you turned that into something positive.
Absolutely. So I thought my life was perfect and just getting even better. I fell in love with a man at university. We were so madly in love that we decided that we had to start a business because we couldn't bear to be apart. We had no money. So we said, what business can we start with no money? And I did a mini market feasibility study and we started a business with no money. And it grew to be the largest yacht dealership and yacht charter company in Western Canada, a multi-million-dollar business that we started when we were in debt with college debt. So that was a huge triumph. And then I had our beautiful son. He was 4 and we were very prosperous for kids who were just barely in our 30s. So we were building our dream home at a ski resort in Whistler. And then my husband dropped dead in front of me. And that was completely devastating and shocking. And I felt shattered. I felt like Humpty Dumpty. I felt like I'd fallen off the wall, shattered into 1,000 pieces. And I had no idea how I would put the pieces of my life back together again. I had lost my best friend, my business partner, my husband, and the father of our 4-year-old son. But I had a very compelling reason to try to put these shattered pieces of my life back together again, because I had that 4-year-old boy looking up at me with such trust that mommy was going to make it all better. And it took me a long time to make things, quote unquote, all better. And I changed in dramatic ways that I'm now grateful for, because I think we can easily get trapped up in the ways of the world and making the mortgage and getting a bigger house and a bigger car and a bigger stock portfolio. But when something really devastating happens earlier in life, it gives you a chance to change the trajectory. So I think I've become a person more empathetic, more compassionate, more determined to make a difference, not just make money.
So one of the things that I feel when I hear you talk about the story, so number one, I'm very sorry you had to go through this. And I cannot even fathom just when you think you got it figured out and you can't believe your luck. And then in an instant, it's all shattered. But how did you find the gift? Because this happens, there is really no gift in here. I mean, what could the gift possibly be? But you said you searched for the gift. How did you even get into that mindset?
Well, I'll tell you a little story. I had a dream on the 2nd anniversary of my husband's death, and this dream changed my life. So I still felt desperate. I felt that God hated me. I felt this was a terribly wrong situation and no good could ever come of this. And worst of all, our son had lost his father. Anyway, on the 2nd anniversary of my husband's death, he came to me in this dream and he asked me 3 questions and they changed my life. The first question was, well, if you had it to do all over again, would you still marry me? And I thought about it. I thought about all the good times. I'm like, yeah, I'd still marry you. And then he asked me the second question. He said, well, if you had it to do all over again, would you still have our son? And the answer was like immediate. Of course, absolutely. He's the light of my life. He's my joy and my blessing. And then he asked the third question, and this is the one that changed my life. He said, given those 2 answers, would you want to know that I would die young? In the dream, I was like taken aback and shocked.
Oh, oh, I
But I,
felt that. I felt that even now. I felt that. Yes.
yeah. But I looked in my heart and I discovered the answer was no. I wouldn't want to know. I wouldn't want to taint the joy that we did have with dread. And that dream changed my life. I think it was like a divine gift because it allowed me to accept what happened as if I had chosen it. And in a way, it really allowed me to see the gifts I had been given. I had a beautiful son. I had many delightful years with my husband. He was healthy and strong, and then he was gone. He wasn't ill for 5 years with some dreadful disease. So that was one of the moments that changed my life. And then I just became somebody, before he died, I thought, I can handle everything. I got this. I'm clever, I'm capable, I'm competent, and I can do strategic plans with my economics degree. After he died, I'm like, I don't know how to get through this. I need help. And I eventually started praying for help or asking for help. When you ask for help, it usually does come. Maybe not that instant, but sometimes it comes instantly. And that made me much more humble and much more grateful, and also much more willing to see that maybe there is a gift in everything. And so I have a practice of doing my best not to resist whatever happens, because who knows, maybe there is a hidden gift. I think in every cloud, there is a silver lining if we're willing to look for it. And also, I believe that life is not only about being happy or being rich, which American culture teaches us, and to be thin, but it's to be of service. So who did I need to become to be of maximum service? I believe I needed to become a compassionate person who had dealt with some adversity and overcome it, so that I could be the person who has a deeper well to help others, or to write, perhaps, I'm hoping, more meaningful, more profound books.
Would you say, Aurora, that this is a learnable skill? That, some of our audience, some of our listeners are going to go through things. Maybe they lost their job. Maybe they have a sick parent or loved one, or maybe they've facing a loss. What can you tell them to get into that active search for the gift, even though what they're going through is heavy?
I recommend starting your day with some kind of a spiritual practice, whatever fits with your belief system. So, for example, this morning that looked like I was reading The Dynamic Laws of Prosperity by Catherine Ponder. I wrote in my journal, I blessed my clients and my family and my friends. I asked to be a blessing, to be used as a blessing. And any apparent problems, I'm like, well, I don't see the gift yet, but I'm sure it's bound to come. And I just affirm that I live in a supportive universe. And even though things happen that on all surfaces appear to be setbacks, I've also had so many occasions where I live in a supportive universe is true. For example, just yesterday, I always affirm I live in a supportive universe. So after my husband died, we had just moved. We moved and then he died at 4 a.m. that same day. So I didn't know anybody in the new neighborhood. And about 2 weeks after he died, a woman who I didn't know came to knock at the door with her dog, and she had a son the same age as mine, 4. And she explained that she was also a young widow. So I'm like, come on in. I gave her a cup of tea. And then to my shock, my 4-year-old son, who had not left my sight because he was almost keeping his hand on me like Velcro since his father died so unexpectedly. He didn't want his mother to vanish. Anyway, he went to play in his room, which was on the top floor, with this little boy. I'm like, wow, that was amazing. That was quick. Anyway, we chatted and discovered that even though we lived 75 miles away from the ski resort where I had just moved with my husband and son, our 2 boys had both been at that dandelion daycare 75 miles away. She had moved 4 months before me. And so those boys already knew each other. And they went to school together. They were in the same grade. And that little boy made it less of a devastating personal insult that his father had died, and more, oh, something that happens. And then I was also able to be a gift to her. She was a teacher. So although she worked reasonable hours, there was a period of time after her son came out of school where she was still not home. So I looked after both boys, and that was a blessing. So what are the chances? I mean, what are the statistically speaking chances that you move 75 miles and there's a person there who has a son the exact same age as yours, who had just moved there a few months earlier, who already knows your son, who's also a widow, who normalizes the situation and has some wise advice because she's farther down. Her husband had died 2 or 3 years earlier. So I think that was like a little miracle. And I've had so many little miracles that now I'm like, well, I do live in a supportive universe. And
I love that.
am I willing to look for things to be grateful for, and instead of looking for things to gripe about? We only have two choices: fear or faith. And what I noticed, I'm having a deeper spiritual practice now because I noticed that 2020 and COVID kicked up the part of me that has post-traumatic stress from witnessing my husband's death, and that I was starting to tend towards a habit of fearful thinking. And I don't want to be that person because I believe whatever we spend time thinking about, we magnetize and draw.
Yeah.
We create it. And so it's wonderful that we're having this interview today because I've really just deepened my commitment to my spiritual practice. And I'm noticing I feel calmer and more poised. I'm not perfect, but I have noticed that inviting the God of my understanding, the spirit into my daily practice and turning things over to spirit, like, okay, I've done everything I can, it's up to you now, is very peaceful. How does that resonate with you and your spiritual practice?
Yeah, very much so. I've talked about this on the show a lot. I had a deep spiritual journey about a year ago, and I had my butt kicked, and everything I was afraid of came up and out, and I had to face demons of a very abusive mother and remembered things I really could have done just fine without remembering it. And then in the integration period afterward, so there's the event of something, and then there's the integration of the event. And that's when you grapple, you come to terms with, you figure out what it means. But I think the only way to manage that is to have a spiritual belief, because you can either, and what comes to mind for me here always, Aurora, is Tony Robbins. I watched this Netflix documentary where I'm Not Your Guru, where he says, and he was severely abused by his mother. And he says, I thank her for everything. And I was so shocked when I heard him say that. And I'm like, what's there to be thankful for? But this ties into the theme of this particular podcast. He says, if it wasn't for her, then I would not have stepped into who I am. And I think for you having to figure out so young what your voice was, that you helping get other people their message and their voice clears because you probably went through that. And my compassion and passion for helping others to take insane, crazy ideas. I'm come from conservative Germany, and it's not exactly like big creative ideas are being rooted up on. You must go the right way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in order, yeah. And I was nothing like that. And so I think that having to overcome that and the abuse and this being forced into a square that I just didn't want to live in made me be who I am. So that's what I'm hearing when I hear you talk about this, Aurora, that you say you have two choices, as you said, fear or faith. And if you choose faith, there must be beauty in this. This part really is a little bit mind-blowing, right? I think, or maybe let me phrase this as a question. Do you think most people have a challenge when something bad happens to look at it as a gift?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's very challenging, and it's very human to always want things to go our way. But sometimes we don't know what is in our highest and best good. We talked before the break about the choice. Really, you can choose fear or you can choose faith. Another way to put that, which A Course in Miracles talks about, is you can choose gratitude or you can choose grievances. So I don't want to be the kind of person who is always complaining, because is always so much to be grateful for. And so many people, when they look outside and it's a rainy day, they go, oh, it's a bad day. Well, is it? It's just a rainy day. If there wasn't any rain, the plants would all die. I mean, I look outside the window now and I'm in British Columbia and it's snowing. I could go, ah, it's snowing. And maybe I did go, ah, it's snowing when I first saw it. But I'm inside. I'm warm. I'm cozy. I have a roof over my head, so I can be grateful for that. So it is a practice to seek something to be grateful for. And if that's too big of a leap, then I still recommend that everybody starts their day with a bit of mindfulness practice. That might look like going for a walk in nature for you, or it might look like 5 minutes of deep breathing, looking at a candle, or it might look like reading something that you find uplifting, maybe Mel Robbins' book. Let Them is your cup of tea, or A Course in Miracles, or Rumi, or The Prophet, whatever it is that might be a touchstone that I really like, the Tao Te Ching, for example. Something to elevate your thinking, and maybe just spend 15 minutes, 30 minutes starting your day that way. I guarantee you, if you do this for 30 days, you will notice differences.
Yeah, I think the change is calm. You become calm, very, very calm, and very content, and you tend to fight the circumstances less. I want to shift this now into, because it's the Business Growth Architect show, right? Look, this is all amazing and good. How do I use this to grow my business? How do I now take this spiritual connection, my gratitude, the finding the gift in the things that I had to overcome? How do I turn this into a successful business?
All right. Well, I think a successful business starts by solving problems at a profit. So given that business is basically solving problems, if you've never experienced any problems, how good are you going to be at solving them? Not very good. So every problem that you have may contain the seed, first solving it for yourself, and then perhaps you can solve it for others. I mean, you told me before we started recording all the assets you've created, all the structures, all the systems, all the thought, all the love, all the intelligence you put into all these business structures. That's so valuable for somebody else, can be part of your legacy. Some of those answers that you discovered, you probably tussled with to finally find the one that worked the best. And then you're like, Eureka, this is the one that works the best. So if we notice that as entrepreneurs, we solve problems at a profit, then lean into, when you're ready, can you solve this problem for yourself? Who else has this problem? Is this a problem you would like to help other people solve? So when I graduated with my MBA in 2015, I took a year off and went to Italy, got my MBA, and that was very cool. It was one of those bucket list goals. Yes, MBA, check. Then I came back and I'm like, okay, now what do I do? And I got overwhelmed because there were so many different things I could do. But I basically looked at myself. I'm like, okay, I've been in film, I've been in television, I'm an award-winning screenwriter, I'm an award-winning author. I love communication, I love coaching, I love bringing out the gold and finding the gold in somebody's story. I'm a coach, so I have compassion. So what is the biggest use that could be made of little Aurora? And the answer to me is quite clear. If I can help people, well, not if, I do, I help people who are already making a difference, make a bigger difference by getting clear in their message. And usually that involves writing books and stepping up to the next level as a thought leader and a speaker. That is a really good use of Aurora, because if I'm helping people who are already maybe inspiring 10,000 people, and I help them touch and inspire 1 million people, that is a good result, right?
That's massive, yeah.
Yeah. So whatever the challenge is, you don't have to always turn your challenge into your business, but I bet even the slightest bit more problem means that you have quite a bit more capacity for compassion and empathy, and that always helps.
I think this is so important in my career, in my life. I think that's exactly what happens, is the thing that you're solving becomes the gift that you can share, because you have so much time and energy to resolve something. And when you do, it's almost like you have an obligation to say, oh, I got something figured out. And I think it's worth mentioning that when you were going through the grief, you started a grief counseling business to help others, because as you're figuring out on how to do that, you helped others on how to do the same. And that's a very important message for our listeners to say, okay, so what's the thing that I'm up against right now? And could I don't know who said it, but the mess is the message.
Yeah.
Or the obstacle is the way, like in Stoicism, which I've been totally into lately.
I love Ryan Holiday. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just this idea of like, why do you make it such a big deal? The further and the deeper we go into our spiritual practices, the easier business becomes, because we are not judging the outcomes based on
Right.
us, right?
Exactly right. So a simple example would be, saying, well, I don't know how to blah, blah, blah. And then I say to my clients when they say, I don't know how, I'm like, yay, well, then we have the question is really clear. The question is, how do I?
Mhm.
And then you just find the answer. The other thing I want to bridge between the spiritual to the business application is there, as the Course in Miracles says, there is no order in size of miracles.
Oh, I like that. Talk more about that.
Yeah. So don't be asking for something trivial. Don't simply ask, oh, I want my business to grow 15% in the next year. No, why not ask for something that you really, really want that would make your heart sing? Make my business grow by 2x, by 10x, or I want to reach 10 times more people, or I want to leave a legacy, or I want to get a team that supports me so I could only work 4 hours a week, as Tim Ferriss promises us in the 4-hour work week, or whatever your heart's desire is. I think we often negotiate with ourselves to trivialize our heart's desires, and we don't even make them a goal. And I invite people, why not really check in with your heart? Maybe it'll take more than one morning to do that. What would really, really make you happy, and why? And try to go deeper than just, I want more money and I want a bigger house and a bigger car. Like, why? And who would it help? And how would you like to help people? And what would be evidence that you're helping people that would really make your heart sing? And really lean into that and give yourself some time. And then don't think you can't have it. If you are being of service and what you are doing is making a difference to the lives of others, why not do even more?
Yeah, and I want to give an example as I'm, preparing for another spiritual journey. In this legacy concept about making the materials that I've created available for other coaches and consultants that really need to figure out on how to work with their clients. And as I'm going into the preparation for this next journey, it's more than half of the people that are going there left corporate because they felt the call to start their own coaching or consulting business to help more people. As I am preparing and hearing the call that I need to help them with the business systems and support, I was called to go somewhere where half of everybody that's there is doing exactly that.
Yeah, I would say that is a natural miracle flowing naturally from your intention to be of service and your clarity about the legacy gifts you have to give. And then it's like the universe just orchestrates it that you've got a whole bunch of people who need that help. So if you also are clear what the offer is before you go, I bet you will close some deals on your spiritual retreat, even though that was nice.
The intention when you go on a spiritual retreat is not, you don't go there for business, you go there for spirituality. But to your point, I'm certainly not going to exclude that, because I know how many millions and millions and millions of dollars this has created for people that have helped other people. My impact has been measured, like we as a company, we measure our impact by how much impact we make others.
We think alike. Well, also, I think a business can be a spiritual practice.
Mm-hmm.
If you are surrounding it with your prayer and your highest vibration intentions to be a contribution, then your business could be your spiritual practice.
I love that. Aurora, so for somebody who now has listened to this and said, I feel I have a message, it's good, it's maybe not great. Maybe I need to talk to her, have me go deeper and really take this inside, this beauty on the inside and make it visible and articulate it to the outside world. Where do we send them?
They can go to SamePagePublishing.com and they can see a number of people that have helped, and they can even get a free copy of Turn Words into Wealth. They can sign up and get the ebook absolutely for free, or if they're not quite ready to give their email away, they can grab Turn Words into Wealth wherever books are sold, if they prefer that starting point.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. That's a wonderful, wonderful start to getting to know you. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, Aurora. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
And that is it for us for today. Thank you so much for listening to or watching this episode of The Business Growth Architect. We went a little deep today on the spiritual side, but as you can see that the deeper you go into your purpose and to listening to why you do what you do and what you're feeling called to and the voice that wants to come up, the better your business is going to operate and the easier it will be and the less work it will be for you. So take Aurora up on her offer and check her out. And I see you again next time, and goodbye. So appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for listening to the entire episode. Please subscribe to the podcast, give us a 5-star review, a comment, and share this episode with one more person so that you can help us help more people. Thank you again. Until next time. Goodbye.